Hey everyone, I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Mustang Prince Oral Reports. Now, for those who don't follow me, I love cartoons. I mean, not just animated movies, but also animated TV shows. Why? Well, because they can be fun, wacky, and exciting at times. However, when I was little, there was one thing about animated shows that I didn't know about. Pilots. For those who don't know, a television pilot is a standalone episode of a TV series that is used to sell the show on a television network. At the time of its creation, the pilot is meant to be the testing ground to gauge whether a series will be successful. And ever since the early 2010s, I've been learning about several that unfortunately failed to become its own show. And the pilot that I'll be looking at today makes other failed pilots look like masterpieces in comparison. So, let's just get this over with already. Released to Cartoon Network on November 10th, 2002, the pilot is The Groovenians. Okay. Now, this is the story of two misfit hippies named Jet and Glendy from a bland suburban planet named Jeepers, who make their escape to the bohemian utopia of Groovenia, a planet filled with wild inhabitants from all over the universe, creating art and having fun. So, what do I think of this pilot? Well, hate to admit it, but this is, without a doubt, the absolute worst animated pilot that I've ever heard about. But let's move on to Mustang notes. The Groovenians is the first and only TV cartoon created by Kenny Scharf, a surreal painter from Brooklyn, New York, who I think is a very expressive and unique guy, especially since some of his paintings include cartoon characters like the Flintstones and the Jetsons. The pilot's art, animation, and concept were the result of Scharf's long work experience as part of painting pop culture icons in a science fiction setting. The pilot was entirely produced by Cartoon Network Studios, but its CGI was instead animated at S4 Studios. Kenny Scharf wrote the story with Jordan Rychek, who directed the Invader Zim pilot, who also held the roles of director, producer, and storyboard artist. Okay, so let me get this straight. The guy who directed this Weird. Also to note, while it was first aired on Cartoon Network's Adult Swim, it was also re-aired 3 months later during the Cartoon Fridays marathon. Now, while Cartoon Network was one of my favorite channels during my childhood, I want to let you guys know that I was completely unaware about the Groovenians being aired, nor did I watch the pilot on TV. Why? Well, it's because I was distracted by two things back then. 1, 6th grade homework, and 2, Boy Scout meetings. And I hate to admit it, but I'm kind of grateful for them, because even if I did see it on TV, I would be completely horrified. But during the early 2010s, I finally managed to find out about the Groovenians' history when I saw other reviewers like Huey Toonmore, Rowdy C, even the cartoon hero give their thoughts, and I really feel bad that they had to go through this travesty as equally as I do. Now, in my eyes, the CGI animation is really terrible. Not only do the mechanics make the characters move really stiff, but the designs make them look like bad 3D Doug characters. But way, way worse. Plus, the planet Jeepers may seem like your everyday suburban town with Lego-style lawns, but it's a really normal but boring planet where nothing exciting ever happens. Yet it does have a port for interplanetary travel. As for the planet Groovenia, well, it looks like a Jetson-style place inhabited by hippies. Also, aside from the animation, there are all sorts of flaws throughout this pilot, like dumb writing, ridiculous dance sequences, annoying gags like an echo whenever someone says Groovenia, and an out-of-nowhere laugh track that you'd hear in sitcoms. Also, there is some bizarre innuendo in some parts. But, to me, the most insane part in this pilot is when Jet's parents does some sort of game show getup where they take charge of his and Glindy's choice in life. They give Glindy a terrible job, and they try to force Jet to marry Glindy's sister Yalda. But after Glindy saves Jet from a terrible marriage, it gets followed by a really terrifying chase scene. However, the only good thing about this pilot is the opening intro song, sung by the B-52s. And to me, I find this intro to be very similar to their Rock Lobster song. And now, let's move on to the characters and their voice actors. These are our main characters, Jet and Glindy. Jet is voiced by Paul Reubens, best known from Pee-wee's Big Adventure, The Nightmare Before Christmas, Matilda, and Beauty and the Beast, The Enchanted Christmas. And Glindy is voiced by Robert De Niro's daughter, Drena De Niro, who had an appearance in The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle. Now, unlike most hippie characters like Crystal from Scooby-Doo and the Alien Invaders, or Dean from the Iron Giant, these two are basically your one-dimensional hippies who are unappreciated for their art, music, and free thinking. This is Jet's dog, Lookie. Lookie is an alien dog who can do any animal noise, kind of like that Farmer Says toy. That may seem kind of bizarre, but still, I think Lookie is a really pointless character. Next is Nixon, voiced by Vincent Gallo. A lot of folks have pointed out that he sounds kind of similar to Pauly Shore. Anyway, to me, Nixon has the smallest role in the entire pilot. You see, after he was dumped to his house from a spaceship, he tells Jet and Glindy about the planet Groovenia, and before he gets grounded by his grandmother, Nixon tells Jet and Glindy to take the intergalactic fun bus to Groovenia, and he also gives them the key to his apartment pad. These are the titular Groovenians, and they are also Nixon's former roommates, Lalasha, Swirly, and Swavo. Lalasha is voiced by Ann Magnusson. Swirly is voiced by Debbie Mazur. and Suavo is voiced by veteran voice actor Jeff Bennett. To me, these guys are okay, and they are very welcoming when Jet and Glindy become their new roommates. However, personality-wise, LaLasha is pretty mellow and snotty, Swirly acts like your typical teenage girl, and Suavo has a bit of a Pepe Le Pew personality. Finally, we come to the king of the normals and the villain of the pilot, King Norman, voiced by the late Dennis Hopper, who has been in the Super Mario Bros. Movie, and Alpha and Omega. Norman's role in the pilot is to collect the taxes that the Groovenians have to pay for their fun, in the form of water. What a waste. Anyway, a lot of folks have pointed out that Norman kind of is the best character in the pilot due to Hopper's over-the-top and silly acting. However, to me, not only is Norman pretty similar to Jet's dad from earlier in the pilot, but he's also a greedy, money-grubbing jerk. And I think his villain song is absolutely terrible. And it makes me want to listen to Pink Floyd's Money song. Also, I think King Norman's minions kind of look like the living puppets from Unico in the Island of Magic. Except they talk. However, am I the only one who thinks that the way Glindy fights off the normals with her tube of paint is kind of opposite to the way Mickey fights the Beetleworks in Epic Mickey? Plus, I think Norman should be sued for using a Wizard of Oz quote when he gets beaten. And now let's move on to my final words. Overall, The Groovenians has got to be the absolute worst animated pilot that I've ever seen. And I can definitely see why it failed to become its own animated series. With terrible animation, a confusing plot, bizarre musical numbers, aside from one, weird gags, one-dimensional characters, as well as several things that kids would find uncomfortable and terrifying. However, if this pilot was made into a regular painting, that would have sufficed. Instead, Kenny Sharp just shoved this animated atrocity into everybody's faces on television, expecting them to actually believe all the insanity that happens in this. I give this wasted pilot a 10% out of 100. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to join me on Mother's Day, where we dive into an underwater temple to blog another Pokemon film from the Hoenn season, Mustang Power.